For K-pop idols, mandatory military enlistment isn't just a break from the stage. It's 18 months of total isolation from the industry, fans, and the world they once knew. Sometimes that time away doesn't toughen idols up in the way you would expect. It changes them completely, and not always for the better. A great example of this is the situation of Lee Jun, a former M-Black member and actor. It didn't exactly seem like he was counting down the days to enlistment. As an older recruit, he admitted he felt awkward about joining much younger soldiers in the barracks, and deep down, maybe he knew the experience wouldn't go smoothly. Despite struggling with panic disorder long before enlistment, Lee Jun still chose to serve in active duty, hoping to power through like everyone else. Unfortunately, things took a dark turn really fast. Initially, things looked promising as Lee Jun ranked first during his basic training, an impressive achievement in any context, but especially impressive for someone quietly battling mental health challenges. He was assigned to the 8th Division, one of the more physically demanding units in the military. It seemed, at least on the surface, like he was pushing through, proving everyone wrong. But behind closed doors, the weight of the experience was starting to crush him. Sometime during his enlistment, unconfirmed but explosive reports surfaced claiming that Lee Jun had attempted to take his own life while serving, allegedly showing his wrist wounds to a military superior. The headlines were everywhere. It was one of the most disturbing rumors to come out of the Korean military regarding a celebrity in years, though his agency quickly denied the claims, stating that both Lee Jun and his family were shocked by the news. The public couldn't ignore the disturbing fact that something had gone seriously wrong. What we do know for sure is that Lee Jun was struggling. His panic disorder, which he had fought to keep under control for years, reportedly worsened during his time in active duty. Eventually, the Military Manpower Administration officially reassigned him from active service to a public service worker position. A change like this move only happens when a recruit is deemed mentally or physically unfit for continued active duty. His agency confirmed the reassignment and issued a public apology for the concerning news, stating that he would do his best to complete his service at his new post. Although this move was necessary for his safety, it came with a catch: longer service time. Public service workers typically serve a longer term than active duty soldiers, making this not just an emotional setback, but also a time-costly one. After being discharged, fans noticed his demeanor had changed. The hardships he faced during his service continued to haunt him, as his service had seriously ruined his mental health. Similarly, Super Junior's Leeteuk also had a tough time in the military, changing his life for the worse. When he enlisted as an active duty soldier back in 2012, the public was shocked. Leeteuk had been previously ineligible for active service due to a serious herniated disc injury, worsened by intense choreography and a car accident in 2007 that had left lasting damage. But after years of treatment and rehabilitation, he made the personal decision to go into active duty, determined to serve like everyone else, even if it meant pushing past his physical and mental limits. And while his decision was initially praised, Leeteuk himself would later admit he regretted it. As the leader of one of Korea's biggest boy groups, he felt pressure to set an example, one that, in hindsight, came at a big cost. During a talk show appearance, he revealed that the hardships he faced in the military, including a sudden unit change and exhausting physical demands, left him questioning why he put himself in that position at all. He didn't have an easy time serving whatsoever. In an unimaginable personal tragedy, Leeteuk's father took his own life alongside those of Leeteuk's grandparents. The shocking event happened while Leeteuk was still serving, and the emotional toll was devastating. Despite being in the middle of one of the most disciplined and structured environments possible, he was thrown into a spiral of grief and confusion. In a live stream aired in early 2025, Leeteuk finally opened up about just how dark those days truly were. He revealed that his depression became so severe, he often thought about ending his own life just to escape the emotional and physical agony. There were no breaks and no time to breathe. He explained that despite being a successful soldier, crowned shooting champion, and granted over 100 days of vacation, he wasn't even allowed to take a proper day off. His involvement in the Army musical meant he had to keep working while others rested, compounding his mental exhaustion. Leeteuk shared that he had been in therapy for 2 years after his discharge, but during service, seeking help wasn't an option. He said that his manager advised him against requesting a discharge, even though he could have, because doing so would destroy his public image. Instead, he pushed through with medications that didn't suit him, leading to physical breakdowns, vomiting, and emotional breakdowns behind closed doors. Not to mention, he was in a lot of physical pain as a result of his herniated disc injury. In the military, he wasn't treated like a star or a national icon. He was just another soldier battling demons, both old and new, in a system that didn't have the capacity to support him. When he was finally granted a short break, he had to pretend to be okay, masking his breakdowns just long enough to be able to step outside the gates. Just like the others, Big Bang's G-Dragon had many horror stories to tell about his time in the military. It's safe to say that after enlisting, his life was never the same again. From the first day in the barracks, G-Dragon wasn't treated like a soldier, but rather a zoo animal. Fellow soldiers reportedly began documenting every possible detail about his physical appearance and behavior. What should have been confidential, or at the very least respected, became the subject of disturbing curiosity. An observation diary, allegedly compiled by one soldier, recorded everything from the exact placement of his tattoos and moles to his eating habits and prescribed medications. The extent of the documentation was so detailed that even the brand of his wristwatch and the size of his underwear were included. The information was not kept within the confines of the military base, but instead shared online. Some of the information was reportedly distributed by the girlfriend of the soldier who compiled the notes. These private and deeply personal details, once leaked, spread rapidly across the internet, transforming G-Dragon's daily life into a public spectacle. This obsession extended into his most private moments. Reports circulated that soldiers would hang around the communal showers, pretending to walk by casually while deliberately attempting to catch a glimpse of him. Others allegedly stole his belongings, including his underwear, while civilians visiting the military base harassed staff members in hopes of seeing him. Even having a regular meal became difficult for him, as people reportedly spent extended periods watching him eat, to the point where higher-ranking officers had to step in and order soldiers to stop wasting time on such odd behavior. Somehow, this wasn't even the worst of it, as the most disturbing violation came from within the institution meant to protect him. During his hospital visits for medical treatment, his medical records were leaked to the media. Dispatch, a news outlet notorious for exposing private celebrity information, published his confidential admission records, including the specifics of his diagnosis, treatments, and prescriptions. It was later revealed that a military physician had shared these records without consent. The breach of medical confidentiality, especially in a setting as structured and regulated as the military, drew serious criticism from fans and netizens alike, though few meaningful consequences followed. The media quickly framed his medical leave as a misuse of privilege rather than a necessity born from chronic pain and legitimate health concerns. Prominent political figures, including Congressman Pyo Chang-won, publicly criticized the Ministry of National Defense for allegedly allowing G-Dragon to take an excessive number of sick days. The controversy grew to such a level that the Korean Army Chief of Staff was forced to issue an official statement denying that G-Dragon received any form of special treatment. In reality, G-Dragon had endured all of this while continuing his service despite serious injuries, and was later moved into more private accommodations solely because the level of harassment he faced had become unbearable. G-Dragon tried to make the best of the situation. He reportedly shared his Amex Black card with fellow soldiers to help ease tensions, letting them buy snacks or other items in hopes of fitting in, but even that was twisted into a narrative that he was trying to buy his way into peace. To make matters even more unbearable during his service, the K-pop industry was struck by one of its most damaging controversies to date, the Burning Sun scandal. The high-profile case, which centered around illegal activities linked to former Big Bang member Seungri, unfolded while G-Dragon was still serving. Although he had no direct involvement and was physically removed from the situation, the timing could not have been worse. He re-entered civilian life under a heavy cloud of uncertainty, unsure how much of the group's legacy had been tainted and whether the public would be willing to separate his name from the scandal. After being discharged, G-Dragon returned quieter, more withdrawn. In public appearances, he seemed more tense, less spontaneous, and seemingly burdened by something unseen. It's safe to say that this whole ordeal left a serious mark on him. In June of this year, RM from BTS made his long-awaited return from the military, and just like with other idols, fans were absolutely devastated to find out about all the challenges he faced while serving. For RM, the leader known for his composure and intellect, military life turned out to be the most mentally exhausting chapter of his life. While it's no secret that enlistment is physically demanding, the emotional toll it took on him ran much deeper. Living in a space with 20 other soldiers, enduring noisy nights from snoring and teeth grinding, and navigating the rigid expectations of military hierarchy, all while already struggling with internal battles, would be enough to push anyone over the edge. In a recent live, RM revealed that between April and May of 2024, at the peak of HYBE's internal chaos with the A-Door and Min Hee-jin scandal brewing in the background, he developed severe insomnia. He described lying awake for nearly 78 hours straight, unable to fall asleep despite overwhelming exhaustion. At one point, he was so sleep-deprived that he thought, "I'm going to pass away at this rate." In his words, it didn't matter how tired he was, his body just wouldn't shut down. This would then take a toll on him during the day, as he was still expected to follow the tough schedule and complete physically demanding tasks. What makes things worse is that this wasn't just about a few sleepless nights. The problem grew so severe that RM had to seek therapy and was eventually prescribed medication, which he still uses today. Even after returning home, he's admitted to being afraid of the night, haunted by the fear that he won't be able to sleep. He even questioned himself harshly, wondering why he couldn't just be stronger, why he couldn't handle the military when when he had already survived so many challenges in his life. But no matter how much he tried to push through, nothing seemed to work while he was stuck in that environment. Even his seniors began scolding him, and he felt like he had to change his sensitive self to be able to adapt. One of the most heartbreaking parts of RM's story is that for the first time in his career, he didn't write a single song for over a year. Music, which had always been his way of processing pain and stress, just wasn't something he could bring himself to do. Instead, he poured everything he was feeling into a diary, admitting that the entries were full of curses and anger, words he didn't feel comfortable sharing, but that helped him get through some of the darkest days. While he was in the military, RM would often post countdowns and share messages that implied he couldn't wait for his enlistment days to be over. Thankfully, he's back to his old life now, even doing live streams and slowly reconnecting with fans. However, it's clear that the scars of his time in the military haven't fully healed. He's been open about the fact that he's still trying to get better, still adjusting, still healing from the months that pushed him to the edge. Just like RM, SHINee's Taemin knows all too well how military service can ruin your mental health. Of all idols to enlist in recent years, few faced the reality of military service with as much visible dread as Taemin. In the months leading up to his enlistment in May 2021, he was very open about his fear and anxiety. During a V-Live with fans, he broke down mid-conversation because of the pressure put on him. Eventually, he had to enlist, and although the beginning was quiet, small updates started to reveal uncomfortable truths. Taemin spoke of the invasive lack of privacy in the military, especially in communal spaces like showers. As someone known globally, he quickly became the center of attention among fellow soldiers. He admitted that whenever he entered the showers, all eyes turned to him, and it got so uncomfortable that he had to change his showering schedule just to avoid these issues. Rumors also circulated online that some individuals tried to take photos of him and leak them, triggering serious concern among fans who already sensed he wasn't having an easy time. But things only worsened from there. On January 14th, 2022, SM Entertainment released a formal statement. Taemin had been transferred from the military band to a public service position due to serious and worsening mental health issues. They confirmed that Taemin had been struggling with depression and anxiety even before enlisting and had continued receiving therapy and medication during his time in service. But eventually, the symptoms intensified to the point where the military determined it was no longer possible for him to continue active duty and treatment simultaneously. From the beginning of basic training, Taemin reportedly brought large quantities of psychiatric medication and was issued his prescriptions every evening during dinner. A fellow soldier shared that even on difficult days, Taemin would put on a brave face, staying cheerful around younger recruits and playing with them to lighten the mood. But behind that forced smile was someone desperately trying to keep himself together. It was also revealed that upon arriving at the base, he was constantly approached for autographs, stared at during meals, and watched relentlessly as if he were a spectacle, not a person. Though some of these stories came from anonymous sources, they echoed the experiences of other idols and added weight to fans' concerns that Taemin was being pushed to his breaking point under the guise of national duty. After his discharge, Taemin seemed to be doing better, or at least that's what fans observed. He returned to the public eye with a sense of lightness that was missing before, something he definitely didn't experience during his time in the military. It goes to show that enlistment can be more brutal than anyone could ever imagine, and more soldiers are struggling to adapt to normal life afterwards.